name is Father Paul, and I am with the community of the Crucified One. We are here in Moretown, Vermont, and today I want to start a little series of talking about the vision of the community of the Crucified One. So many people do not know the background of the charismatic movement and how the Holy Spirit moved on so many different people. And we were just blessed to be able to be one of those little parts of what the Holy Spirit was doing during the charismatic movement. The charismatic movement started in 1907, and it quickly moved across the country from the Zuzu Street Revival, as it was called. And it took a whole long time, almost over 50 years, almost 60 years before the Catholics woke up to the Holy Spirit and began to ask and seek the face of the Lord. What's going on with the denominational churches? Why don't we have this? And in 1967, I think it was, a bunch of students went into the Duquesne Chapel in Pittsburgh, Duquesne University, and said, we're not coming out of here until the Holy Spirit falls upon us. They went in one weekend, and true to what they experienced that day, the Holy Spirit fell upon them, and that's basically where the Catholic charismatic movement began. And this took on such a fire. They began moving in great numbers out of their denominational churches, along with the rest of the people. And a place called Notre Dame, which everybody must have heard of, it was becoming the center of this great revival of the charismatic movement, where Catholics were going, Protestants were going, any people of faith were going to be there and to worship the Lord together. Amazing things took place there, and this fire began to grow, and more people began to come out of their churches, and more people began to join together, not just in that area, but all across the nation. People would join together in the most different places, like a sports arena, where people would join together and just praise and worship the Lord. I remember personally being in the new Giant Stadium in New Jersey, where Terence Cardinal Cook attended himself, along with so many other bishops, and all of us, Protestant, Messianic, any kind of believer, first-time believer, along with Catholic, we worshiped and praised the Lord there together. And I don't know what it was, but it was the power of the Holy Spirit, well, that's all I can tell you, that was putting such a desire in so many people's life to participate in this worship before the Lord. Oh, that's what we wanted to do. We were consumed in our hearts with worship before the Lord. And no one ever really cared what your background was. Well, you might have been a Catholic, and you might have been a Methodist, and you might have been a Baptist, you might have been anything. But you weren't sitting there trying to figure out who what was. You were there for one reason, and that reason was Jesus, and that reason was to worship the Lord. And there was word of knowledge going out, and prophecy going out, and people speaking in tongues, and from this thing began to form communities outside the churches. Word of life communities, were springing up everywhere, where people would come together from all different backgrounds and just being in a community of believers, worshiping the Lord and learning for the first time together the word of the Lord. Something that was not happening before. Just, you can imagine it. All different people coming out of denominations and sitting together, worshiping together, and hearing people speak about the Bible. That was unique about it. There was a unity about it. If there was any word that you could capitalize this movement, it was a unity that we never experienced as a church together, as a body of believers together. And it continued to grow. And it continued to be more word communities. And it continued to be more people who want to just make a difference in their life. Church just wasn't enough. They wanted a community existence together. They wanted more than a Sunday. They wanted more time to be together and do things together and pray together and raise their families together, the whole thing. So these things were springing up all over the place. And in Pittsburgh, where our community began, there was a community called the Homestead Prayer Community, and it was led by Edward Donovan, who was a longtime Catholic his whole life, and he got, at a later age, an experience with the Lord with Catherine Coleman, and got saved in that, and he got into this movement of the Holy Spirit with the diocese in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they made him a moderator in it, and he and all of his fellow Catholics, they were joining with the Protestants and praising the Lord. So he established in this ghetto area in Homestead, where no one wanted to go, or was a mill town, and it was a broken down mill town, and all kind of things were happening there that was risky. People didn't want to go into that town because it kind of called a ghetto at that time. And for some reason, the Lord inspired him to become an occupant of that area, and he had a house there, a townhouse, and people came to worship the Lord 2 nights a week, Tuesday night and Thursday night, and became known as the Homestead Prayer Reunion. It was there that people started to come from all over the city to participate in this worship and praise before the Lord. This started in 1970. And it continued to grow for 7 years, and after a 7-year period, the place began to need more room, and the Lord opened up the time for houses right next to it, adjoining houses, up for sale, and they purchased one after another, and the stories of how they were able to do that is unbelievable. But I'm getting to a place here that I wanted to tell you that things was expanding. And at this time, around 1977, 78, sometime in that time period, after all this has been going on and this notoriety of the charismatic movement moved across the United States, and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit was so thick, another conference, another time at Notre Dame was coming up. And it was at this time a significant event took place where priests beforehand opened the doors for their fellow brothers and sisters in the Lord, now saved, being born again, filled with the Holy Spirit, on fire, evidence of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, moving manifestations like you couldn't even believe. Oh, what a community of believers it was. What a significant influence it was having all around. Well, the Catholic bishops decided that, you know what, and the ones that weren't filled with the Holy Spirit, if we don't do something, we're going to lose our congregants out of our churches to this movement. And so they came together and they gave an edict that the priests were not allowed at Notre Dame to give anybody who was Roman Catholic Holy Communion. And that was the day that you could feel a change took place in this thing that just came up and up and up and up and up. The Holy Spirit was grieved that day, because no one who's born again, no one who's filled with the Holy Spirit, no one who's walking with God should ever be denied the communion table. And that's what took place. And you could actually point to that time as when this movement went so high, and then the movement came down again.